Hey there, welcome back to another episode of Real Results with Coach Joe. I'm your host, Coach Joe Villegas, and this is the program where we help you to improve your health, increase your wealth, and live a more fulfilling life. And with me today, I have Kelly Corbitt. Kelly, how are you?
Hi, good. Good to be here, thanks.
Fantastic. So happy that you're here. For those of you who are uninitiated, Kelly is not only, you have a very long resume, yoga instructor, licensed clinical social worker, psychotherapist, and selfishly, you're the director of mental well-being for Paragon. So really excited to have you here today and excited for the topics we're going to go through because I think they are so important to like the landscape of life today.
Right.
So fill us in a little bit like on your background, kind of like
Sure.
all that you do
Right.
and what you do, just to kind of set the stage before we dig into it.
Okay. Yeah, I think when I think about like how I ended up doing what I'm doing, it's one of those situations where it's a long and windy road.
Sure.
That at the time might not seem like all the points are connected, but then when I look back, I'm like, oh yeah, that really led to this and that led to that. So I actually started, I was a psychology major in undergrad, but I was also a theater major. And
Nice.
I moved to New York to pursue acting after I graduated.
Which I just learned about.
Yeah.
Right before we get on camera, you tell me that, you know, you've got some time behind the camera. So.
Right, well, sort of. But what I moved to New York right before September 11th.
Oh my God.
And at the same time when that happened, I also found yoga. And it was sort of an anchor for me in like a really vulnerable and scary time.
Sure.
So yoga's been a part of my life ever since, in every chapter since then. And at the same time, I had been auditioning and formed a theater company with a few friends and colleagues, and part of that work was community outreach into some underserved neighborhoods, and we did some writing and performing workshops with them. And as time went on, I just started to realize I kind of like working with people that way a lot more than performing and pursuing the artistic path. And so I went back to school, got my social work degree, kept teaching yoga and meditation, and my first job out of grad school was working with in a residential facility with girls who had been removed from their home, young girls and teens, and it was a trauma program. And the model we followed was something called the sanctuary model, which was a very holistic kind of approach to healing and care. And I didn't realize as I was doing this at the time, but I started teaching yoga with the girls. We started to work on lots of relaxation techniques. And so I was beginning to bridge my two worlds, sort of the mental health background piece and the yoga, wellness, mindfulness side of me. And so fast forward 15 or so years, I'm in private practice now in Pennsylvania, and I see all ages, children, teens, adults, individuals, families in private practice psychotherapy. I still teach yoga and meditation, and I'm bridging even more those worlds by kind of going out into schools and corporations through Paragon, doing wellness webinars. So have my private practice, kind of deep healing work, and then also this broader, far-reaching work of wellness.
One-to-many sort of approach.
Exactly.
For sure. So it's like a interesting evolution. I always love hearing people's stories and then like how you ended up where you are today. Like you never really could have predicted that.
Exactly.
Thankfully, because there was some variety, right? Some spice of life. But what I'd love to cover today is a topic that you and I both know is thrown around quite a bit. I think there's some maybe like mystique around what does it really mean, and that's a topic of self-care, which is very broad, and with the little that I know, and I'm sure you're like, yeah, there's a lot to this. So let's begin to unpack this a little bit. So when we talk about self-care, what are we talking about?
Yeah.
What does it mean?
Yeah. It's a great question. It's a term that's used all over the place these days. I think sometimes can have a little bit of a self-indulgent stigma about it, and I really feel strongly about breaking that.
Yeah, for sure. Let's do it.
Because it's to do anything that we do in any role that we play in our lives, we have to take care of ourselves, and that means taking care of our well-being on a variety of domains, whether it's physical, medical health, social health. My personal sort of angle is the mental, emotional well-being, health. And so managing our stress and finding ways to build a plan for us that helps us manage our stress is crucial to be able to keep going. It's not sustainable to not do that.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, we end up getting burnt out, we end up getting sick, we end up like feeling really disconnected to people in our lives. So it's just a crucial aspect of taking care of ourselves is to carve out that time and figure out how that works for us.
Right.
Best.
And I think this is my opinion, like where you begin is what you just said. Like just start by carving out some time.
Yeah.
What you do in that time
Yeah.
will evolve and you can experiment with different things. I know for myself, I started with just like walking. Like I would go on walks and I listened to audiobooks or like personal development programs. That's kind of how I got into that whole realm. And I just really enjoyed walking. And then I got more into meditating. Actually, funny enough, had never really tried it. And then I called you on the phone one day from the car and I was like, what do I do? Tell me all the secrets. And from then it's become a bigger part of my life. So people can carve out the time. Let's start there. Is there like an amount of time? Is it like 5 minutes, a half hour, wherever you can?
Honestly, I tell people if you have a minute, start with a minute. And it's really, at least initially, I think most important to just be really present with what you're doing in that minute, rather than saying, well, I can't do it because I don't have 20 minutes of time right now. Take a minute, take 2 minutes, really be in the moment and mindful of what it is you're doing and let that then grow. And we can expand that. Maybe 2 becomes 10, maybe 10 becomes 30 minutes a day. But I think a lot of us get overwhelmed with, I don't have enough time to do this, so I don't do it at all.
Right.
And it really can help you to just do it in the tiniest increment, and then maybe you do that consistently for 3-4 days, and that's just as or more beneficial than once a month for a half hour.
100%. What I love about that too is when you say be present in what you're doing, like, so I'll hear this in the fitness space where it's like, hey, I can't get to the gym, it's 30 minutes away from my house. Or what you're saying, it's like, dude, wherever you are, just be there. You know, just do that thing. So maybe, like, how would you recommend folks begin to fill that time? What are some like entry level things to get started?
Yeah, well, my personal favorite is by just breathing. Because it's something we're doing all the time anyway. And if we can bring our real attention and mindful awareness to the breath, a regular breath that we are never conscious of suddenly becomes some of the most like informative and profound, you know, few moments of our day. So I would say take a deep, what we call a deep belly breath, which is really a diaphragmatic breath. So you're breathing in, you're not taking air into your belly, but you're taking such a deep breath in, that muscle, the diaphragm, extends down. It makes the belly, the organs there kind of come out. So it's like our belly's puffing up like a balloon. And then we release it and we feel what that release is like. We feel the impact of the letting go. I'll often teach people, I do this in my office with clients. I do it in the workshops that I teach, the 3-3-6 breath, which
I've seen this before.
you take a deep, full diaphragmatic 3 count inhale, and then you hold the breath at the top, and you hold that for 3 counts, sort of gathering up any tension so that you can really experience the release for your physical body, your mental body, your whole nervous system on 6 counts of exhale. So you lengthen out the exhale and you really let go. And I always like to suggest that you pay attention to what that feels like physically.
Tune into it.
Really tune in. And you can do this, I mean, that's a breath, right? You can do this at a stoplight. And I often suggest piggybacking this on something you're already doing. So maybe every time you're at a red light or after you brush your teeth in the morning, you're going to take 3 of those deep 3-3-6 breaths. And that's how we begin to build it in as a habit. And then maybe, the time, the length, the pockets of you know, energy that you devote to this and time increases.
For sure. And you brought up another good piece that I always talk about with folks is piggybacking habits. So here's an example for me. For a while, this is years ago, now I've gotten better with it because it's become, you know, more solid part of my day, is I would forget to take like vitamins, like a multivitamin. But I'm like, I don't forget to brush my teeth every day. So I'll just put the vitamins next to where my toothbrush is in the bathroom, down the hatch I go, and I'm fine. And now I don't forget it. It's actually on my nightstand. And I turn my alarm off, grab it, and I'm good to go. So it's working that in and not feeling like you have so many different things to do and have to install another thing. Just put it on something you're already doing.
Put it on something you're already doing. We don't want self-care to feel like a burden.
That's the opposite of what we want,
Exactly. We want it to be, and at first it could feel a little clunky if we're not used to doing it, but if we do build it in this way, my personal experience, the experience of a lot of people I've worked with, is that it becomes this refuge. It becomes this time and space for us to just be.
No doubt. And so when we talk about carving out that time, I think, and I would love to know your opinion on this. So I think that some folks might think, hey, time for me is I'm going to go sit and watch Netflix,
Right.
or I'm going to scroll on my phone, or I'm going to check the computer or whatever.
Right.
Would you really consider that self-care time?
Well, I would ask you or anybody
Sure.
that if in doing that, how present are you? Because
Okay.
a lot of kind of escape methods, whether it be Netflix or scrolling,
Yep.
is just that. It's an
Right.
escape, and it's something that sort of just takes us away from the present moment.
Right. We're not really addressing it.
Exactly. We're just sort of doing something without real a mindful awareness.
Right, or like intention behind it, right?
Intention is, yes, exactly
Gotcha,
it.
okay.
I often talk about the difference between doing and being. And if we're just doing, we're just
Yeah.
going through the day, we're just, commuting to work, we're just going through all the motions, we're
Right.
not really being fully there.
Yeah.
And the same holds true for something like popping on the TV or scrolling. Nothing wrong with pockets of that,
Right.
but as our intended self-care plan, we might not really be being in the moment.
We
in
want
those
to be. We're human
circumstances.
beings. We're not human doings.
Exactly.
For sure. So we want to be human beings.
Yeah.
So that's really great. So breath work is a great place to start for sure. But even things like exercise,
Absolutely.
great place to start. So I know for me,
Absolutely.
walking was like one of the big ones. I was already lifting and that kind of stuff, but finding, for me, it was like 20, 25 minutes in the morning, just going out, like getting outside, fresh air. I'd put a personal development program on, and I would just walk and just like listen to this thing, and I swear the rest of my day was on a much better track.
It's pretty amazing how that happens.
Yeah.
We got a dog a couple years ago, and I walk her every morning,
Yeah.
and it's just such a great opportunity to be outside in nature with this other being,
Right,
this
right, right,
animal, and just appreciate those moments, even if it feels like she has to go out.
Yeah,
right?
right.
I have to,
You have
I have
choice,
to
yeah.
take her out,
Yeah, yeah.
and so I've used that as an opportunity to just
You're
connect
piggybacking.
with.
You're piggybacking, which is fantastic. So awesome. So that's kind of where folks can begin. What's like the typical evolution that you see though, like
Yeah.
from there? So okay, I did my breath work. Joe, I'm going on my walks. Like
Right.
now, like what's next for me? Like
Right.
where can I start exploring?
So what I'll often do is I'll ask people to reflect. I have this one exercise that I use where I ask them some prompts of,
Okay.
what's something that maybe you used to do as a kid and you've sort of lost track of, or something that used to bring you a lot of joy, or maybe something you haven't tried and always wanted to.
Right.
And we sort of look at how much that's showing up in our lives now. And if it's not, then we start to go through a whole series of ways to bring it in
Okay.
and to bring any kind of joy fueling
Yeah, we need some more
activity
joy
in.
in our lives for
Yeah.
sure. So I think there's some layers to that
Yes.
that we're talking about. So I want to get to that. We've got a quick break. We're going to hear from our sponsors. When we come back, we're going to unpack this prompt from Kelly.
What makes a Wawa Club? Is it the crispy bacon on the turkey BLT? The endless layers of flavor of the buffalo chicken salad? Or is it a secret handshake? Nah. At Wawa, there's a club for everyone. Find yours today.
We Ride for Those Who Died. The Police Unity Tour and RVN Television is bringing to you a show called On Your Honor, Straight Talk. And I'm your host, Patrick Monturi. I am a retired police chief from Florham Park, New Jersey, and I am also retired from the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial in Washington, D.C. I am currently, for the last 27 years, the CEO and founder of the Police Unity Tour. And this show will bring to you straight talk about law enforcement, the actions and heroism that is provided to you, the citizens of the United States, as well as their actions in falling in the line of duty, as we could see some of the stories that surround that. Again, please watch us on RVN Television and be safe. Take care.
At Jersey Mike's, they slice your order fresh, right in front of you. And let me tell you, watching that can send a rush of emotions through a person. Excitement, impatience, baby-like wonder, indecisive, anticipatory chewing, nervous pacing, happy claps, and finally, jealousy, because that's this guy's sub. I should order one. Good idea. Sliced right in front of you. It's a Jersey Mike's thing. A sub above.
Welcome back to Real Results. I'm here with Kelly Corbitt, psychotherapist, yoga instructor, mental well-being guru, and Kelly is helping us on the topic of self-care today. So we got to get right back into it. So we got a lot to keep unpacking here. So where we left off, Kelly, was sort of where folks could begin in their self-care journey, just by carving out some time, 1 minute, just at a stoplight, do some breath work, which we're going to include for all y'all, so don't worry, we'll have some stuff for you to download. And then we graduated to some more like basically other modalities, other things we can do. But you started going through this sort of prompt of questions.
Yeah.
Can we unpack that a little more? Go back to that?
I'll actually back it up a little bit because often what helps is to have sort of an idea of how you already spend your time and energy.
Okay.
A lot of us are super obligated, we're overextended in how we spend our time and what we feel we have to do. And sometimes taking a real good, honest look at that and how little we're devoting to ourselves can be eye-opening. Yes. And then once we realize that, or have an idea of maybe what feels out of balance, we go through some of these prompts to try to articulate what could fill some space of joy, you know. And maybe it's we have an injury or a medical concern, and we really need to slow down and do X, Y, or Z steps to take care of ourselves. Maybe it's that, you know, we're so busy, our stress level is so high, we really need to tap into something that used to be fun for us and bring more of that in, right? Bring more of that in. So we'll reflect and we'll spend some time looking at both what it's like now and maybe where it's not working, and then what could fill that? What am I really longing to do, or how I really want to, like, is there a book I've been wanting to read? Is there a hike I've been wanting to take and never did?
On, basically.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then we look at this and we say, okay, maybe you've carved out a minute a day and extend it to 10, and now maybe we can move it to 20, and we find the time for us that's best in the day. For me, it's early in the morning. For others, it's maybe their lunch hour, or having a routine or a reflection time before bed. And you find that, and you just start to do a little bit more and more of that which we have identified as this will bring me joy.
Just chip away at it.
Chip away.
At a time. You know, it's interesting that you bring that up, because I remember a trip I went on with my parents. I think I was probably 24 at the time, maybe 25, and like I was working hard and I was coaching, and like just tons and tons of hours. But it was very much that sort of like hustle culture, like, hey, get up early, stay there late, do this, do that, get it all done. And I was like, all right, that's the way. I gotta, work. And we went on a trip to Mexico. It was my first all-inclusive, which I was like, oh, that sounds kind of lazy, whatever. And like 10 minutes into it, I'm like, I totally get this. And no joke, in the first 24 hours, I got so tired because my body had a chance to like catch up and not be worried about my email or my phone or whatever. I could like have a meal and then just be, like you were saying, like just exist on the beach and not worry about it. And for the majority of that trip, I think it was 5 days, I slept like the bulk of the time. And I missed out on a lot because we're just hanging out. But at the same time, I was like, wow, I didn't realize like how much stress I was putting myself under. So you mentioned like for folks to start kind of tackling that, like how do they even know in the first place? They might just think, hey, this is my routine. I've been doing it for maybe decades at this point. Like I could begin by 1 minute, but like how bad is that stress really for them? Like they really need to unplug, right?
Yeah. Well, I think you didn't notice it until you stopped.
No,
And so when we are constantly going, if we can begin to build in small and then maybe longer times of just slowing down. One of the things when I work with both my clients and my yoga students is that when we're just beginning that process, what we often find is like, oh my gosh, there's so much going on in my mind, in my body that I didn't even know was there. And so there's this period of coming to terms with, wow, I'm like just running.
Just like knot it up.
Totally. And beginning to, this is a big concept in mindfulness, not judge ourselves for that. Like really be gentle and kind with ourselves. And slowly over time, the more we can just be and not go, carve out that 10, 20 minutes, fill it with maybe not even doing anything right away, just being, it begins to let some of those knots and mental knots and physical knots start to loosen up.
So not that long ago, I went to one of those like float tanks.
And
so shout out to Quantum Wellness, Ken up in Bedminster. Go check it out if you're listening. And I'd never done it before. And you get in and it's like, I mean, for real, like you lay down, the water is the same temperature as your body, so you don't even really notice you're like floating there, and you're truly floating. Like you could put your head back and it holds your head up. And you shut the door and it is pitch black, no sound, and you're just literally suspended there for an hour. And it was like the longest but most relaxing hour of my life. And what was insane was when I got out, like for the next probably 12 hours, I was just so like light, you know?
So that's so interesting because I think a lot of us feel like, I've heard this so many times, I don't have time to meditate. I don't have time to take an hour and go float or whatever it might be. But the residual effect is so long lasting.
Yeah.
It like really, really does help you. And excuse me, we might feel like I'm in this go, go, go culture, and we get almost addicted to that busyness.
Right.
And when we stop and realize how empty our tank is and we fill it up, it takes you for a long time. It really can, propel you forward in a more efficient way. So it's that weird like, well, I don't have time for this, but if you invest the time, you're going to get so much more in return.
100%. And it's funny that you mentioned that. So I did that, right? And I had all that time to just kind of like sit and relax. And it was on a Sunday. So I started thinking about Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, all these things coming up. And I'm like, I don't really need to like do half of the things I thought I had to do. Like they're not that important really, or like they don't move the needle as much as I thought. And it was almost just like busy work.
Yeah.
And it's like, all right, well, I can delegate these 2 or 3 things out, and actually I can move that to next month, and it's no big deal. And my calendar started to open up, not because I was like trying to move things, just like kind of realizing like I didn't have to put myself through all this stuff.
And if you maybe didn't take the time to step back and look at that because you were just in it, going and doing, you would never have had that realization.
And it's not as productive. So I can actually put my time towards something that's going to move the needle for my business or my clients or whatever, versus like, oh, I got to make this PDF or I got to send this email out. It's like, no, you really don't.
Right.
Just get the stuff done that matters.
Right.
And there's not that much of it to do. It's an 80-20 rule, right? There's only 20% of it really is going to make an impact. So, okay, so we're doing a whole bunch of stuff here. Now, can we go a little bit deeper? So you actually combine like the mental side of thing with the physical through yoga and all those sorts of things. I got to be honest, I do a little bit of yoga, but I'm a big guy. It's hard to keep myself up in the, down dog for more than a couple seconds. So is that something where folks can just kind of begin through? I know there's tons of stuff on YouTube. There's studios everywhere.
I always say I've heard so many times people come and say, oh, I'm just really bad at yoga. I don't want to do this, or I'm not flexible. I don't want to do this, and it's really not the point. Yoga.
It's kind of ironic in a way, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yoga for me it's really it's such an exercise in just being present with whatever you have, wherever you are in that moment. Whether that's going on a retreat somewhere or sitting at your desk at the office and just kind of moving your spine a few different ways and breathing deeply. Right. There's a door in. Lots of doors in for any level of experience.
Just like you were saying before with mindfulness, it's like just a minute. Just a minute. Maybe if it's the movement piece, just get up from your chair and do some back bends and twist a little bit, nice and slow, not too fast, right? And just begin to sort of like tip that first domino.
So I part of my work is I sit and talk to people a lot. And listen to people a lot, right? And if I have a busy day and I have kind of back-to-back clients scheduled, that time in between for me is crucial to not just move my body, but breathe deeply and kind of clear my mind. And it might sound very simple, and in fact, a lot of these mindfulness exercises are pretty simple, but it's very profoundly impactful if you're really doing it and really present.
And you're
in
like
it.
disciplined with it,
right?
In terms of like, okay, every day I'm going to do a little bit,
yeah.
And you don't have to do breathing and yoga and floating.
No.
And just pick one thing.
It should be personal, it should be individualized, and I absolutely agree. I think you bring up a really good point. A lot of times we think like, okay, yeah, this is my stress coping kit, right? I'm gonna breathe deep, I'm gonna count to 10, I have my toolbox. But if we don't keep those tools sharp, if we don't practice them when we're not super stressed and when we're not under, a lot of busyness, then we don't really grab for them as easily when we really need them. So going back to what we started with, that breathing, if you do that regularly, consistently, even if you don't feel like particularly anxious in this moment, when you do, you'll have it.
You'll have it available to you. It's like don't wait to try and get healthy when you're on your way to the hospital.
Exactly.
Like invest the time now. I mean, that's an investment in yourself,
right?
And it can pay dividends down the road. So I think that's a super crucial point for people to understand. And it's the same when it comes to like any aspect of wellness we talk about on this show. If it's financial, spiritual, physical, nutrition, whatever, is like just do what you can do today, and that compounds over time to the point where you'll be on a much different trajectory with your life and just your experience of it versus like, you know what, I'll start that thing on Monday, or I'll wait till somebody sends me a video of yoga to do, or I'll, whatever your excuse is. is like, just do a little something today.
Yeah.
And I think it's probably, if nothing else, that breath work is the easiest and most accessible
It's
thing.
so accessible,
You don't have to
right.
go anywhere.
Right.
You're breathing now anyway, hopefully, right? And it's like you can't breathe in the past and you can't breathe in the future.
Right.
So you're always present anytime you focus on it. So it's like a built-in mindfulness mechanism.
I love that.
I'm going to trademark that. It's
I
so
love
no one
that.
steal that. That you take with you everywhere you go.
That's absolutely true. And you know what, just hearing you made me think of this. Like, I think a lot of us, when we do start something like this, sometimes realize how stressed we are, or how maybe much pain or struggle that we're in. And a big part of my work is with acceptance, and it's with just, it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to acknowledge that. In fact, it's the only way to do anything about it. If we don't acknowledge what's there with a sense of gentleness and acceptance and non-judgment toward ourselves. So that's kind of in my work, both in sessions and when I work with big groups and in my yoga classes, is begin where you are without judging yourself for where that is.
Wherever you are is fine.
Exactly.
Exactly. So it's kind of like overlaps with sort of the culture piece that I'm in, of like personal development and that, where it's more like taking responsibility for all the pieces in your life, even if you don't think that you need to, like you should anyway.
Right.
But I like your approach of like, yeah, you are, because you're acknowledging these things, but you're not beating yourself up about it.
No.
Let's just look at it for what it is. It's not good or bad, it just is
It
there,
just is.
and that's fine, and that's totally cool. And now that we know it's there, we've illuminated it, we can begin to take steps in the right direction. So I think we covered a ton of awesome material today. And luckily in the break, Kelly agreed we're going to put a little PDF guide together for you. We'll have it on resultswithjoe.com, so you can go there, download it, get the breathing exercise, the prompts, maybe some other little tips and tricks that you've got up your sleeve or your short sleeve that we can share with the viewers.
You got it.
But Kelly, where can folks find you if they want to learn more?
Yeah, so you can reach me, look at my website, it's kellycorbitt.com. I'm on LinkedIn, Kelly Vivian Corbitt. You have my maiden name in there. And you can, see me through Paragon as well.
That's right. I know. I'm very blessed we got you on board here. So
I'm excited to be on
awesome.
board.
Well, thank you for coming on. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
And thank you all for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next episode of Real Results.